"Do you feel lonely too?" to ask the beggar to the millionaire. Little did she know he was a widower. William Thomas Anderson's hands trembled as he tried to hide his face behind his fingers. Tears streamed uncontrollably, soaking the expensive suit that no longer made sense to wear. 3 months had passed, but the pain remained as intense as the first day. That's when he felt someone approaching slowly. A raspy yet tender voice asked, "Do you feel lonely too?" William raised his eyes and saw a middle-aged woman in worn-out clothes, a grey beanie covering her unkempt hair. She held a sandwich wrapped in aluminum foil and watched him with a kindness he hadn't felt in months. "Sorry, I didn't mean to bother you," she continued, noticing his surprise. "It's just, well, I spend a lot of time in this park, and I've never seen anyone cry with such sorrow." William wiped his face with the back of his hand, trying to regain the composure he always maintained in the business world. But something about this woman disarmed him completely. He began, but his voice failed. "Want half my sandwich?" she offered, breaking the bread in half without waiting for an answer. "It's nothing fancy, but when you're hurting, sometimes a little food helps." William looked at her outstretched hand. How long had it been since someone offered him something without expecting anything in return? In the past few months, since Elizabeth had passed, everyone around him seemed interested only in his business or in consoling him with empty words. "Thank you," he murmured, accepting the half sandwich. The bread was a bit dry, but it tasted of genuine humanity. The woman sat beside him on the bench, keeping a respectful distance. "My name is Grace, but you can call me Kate. And you?" "William." They ate in silence for a few minutes. William noticed she chewed slowly, like someone who knows this might be their only meal of the day. He felt a pang of guilt about his privileged life. "Kate, may I ask how long you've been living on the streets?" she finished, smiling sadly. 5 years. But it wasn't always like this. I had a different life before." William wanted to ask more, but something in her tone made him hesitate. Kate looked at the cloudy sky and sighed. "And you, William? What brings a well-dressed man to cry alone in a park in the middle of the afternoon?" The words spilled out before he could stop them. "My wife. She passed 3 months ago." Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, please take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us newcomers a lot. Now, continuing? Kate turned to him with teary eyes. "I'm so sorry. That must be terrible pain." "It is. We were married for 22 years. Elizabeth was everything to me. When she got sick, I moved heaven and earth to save her. The best doctors, the best treatments. But in the end," William couldn't finish the sentence. Instinctively, Kate placed her hand on his arm. She was lucky to have someone who loved her so much. "I don't know if I was lucky or cursed," William confessed, surprised by his own candor. "Sometimes I think it would have been easier if I'd never known that love. Now I don't know how to live without it." Kate grew thoughtful for a moment. "You know, William, I've lost a lot in life too. Not the same way as you, but, well, pain is pain, isn't it? No matter how it comes to us." "What did you lose?" "My daughter," Kate replied, her voice barely a whisper. "Jennifer. She was 15 when everything fell apart. She'd be 30 now." William sensed there was much more behind that story. The way Kate spoke, her word choice, even her posture hinted at a refined upbringing. "You weren't always, a beggar?" Kate laughed humorlessly. "No, William. I was a university professor, a doctor of American literature from Columbia University. I had a house, a car, a comfortable life. I raised my daughter alone after her father left us when she was little." William looked at her with renewed surprise. There really was something different about her, something that didn't match her current appearance. The way she articulated her words, her refined vocabulary, even her upright posture despite the poverty. "What happened?" Kate took her time answering. Her hands trembled slightly as she adjusted the hat covering her hair. When she finally spoke, her voice carried years of pent-up bitterness. "I was accused of something I didn't do, embezzlement from the university. Someone planted false evidence in my bank account. It was such a well-crafted setup that even I began to doubt my own sanity in the first few days. William felt a tightness in his chest. He knew similar stories from the corporate world. How did you find out it was a setup? Because I tracked every penny that went in and out of my account. I was always very careful with money, especially raising Jennifer alone. When I saw those transfers I never made, I knew immediately something was wrong. But who would believe an accused woman over bank records? Did you have enemies at the university? Kate laughed humorlessly. I thought I didn't. I was a dedicated professor, respected by students and colleagues, or at least that's what I believed. Later, I found out some people envied my position, my close relationship with the former dean, my academic publications. And your daughter? How did she react when it all started? Kate's eyes filled with tears again. Jennifer was 15, a brilliant, studious teenager who dreamed of following in my footsteps in academia. When the accusations went public, she became the target of jokes and humiliation at school. Other parents started keeping their kids from studying with her, as if dishonesty were contagious. William imagined the pain of a mother watching her daughter suffer because of her own struggles. That must have been devastating. It was like watching my daughter drown and not being able to save her. Every day I saw Jennifer becoming more withdrawn, more bitter. She started questioning everything I'd ever taught her about honesty, character, values. By the time it all came out, I'd already been fired, sued, and publicly humiliated. But didn't you try to prove your innocence? I tried, William. God, how I tried. I spent all my savings on lawyers, experts, private investigators. I sold the house it took me 10 years to buy, the car, all the furniture, even my rare books I'd collected since I was young. But the trial dragged on for years, and with every hearing, it seemed like the evidence against me multiplied. Kate paused to catch her breath, the memories clearly painful. The cruelest part was how people looked at me. Colleagues I'd worked with for decades avoided me in the halls. Students who once admired me started questioning everything I'd taught. Some even asked to transfer to other classes. And your daughter during all this? Jennifer stayed with my sister Karen during the trial. I thought it would be temporary, that everything would be resolved soon and we could go back to being a normal family. But months turned into years, and with every visit, Jennifer seemed more distant. William noticed how Kate's voice broke when she spoke of her daughter. Karen was always different from me. She saw the world in a more practical way, let's say. When the scandal broke, she made it very clear she considered my situation a disgrace to the whole family. She started filling Jennifer's head with poison, saying I was a bad influence, that she needed to stay away from me to have a decent future. That must have been devastating. It was like having my heart broken every single day. I watched my daughter gradually pull away, starting to look at me with suspicion, questioning stories I'd told, doubting memories we'd shared. Karen was subtle. She never outright said I was guilty, but she planted seeds of doubt that grew in the mind of a confused, hurt teenager. Kate wiped her eyes with the sleeve of her worn blouse. The worst moment was when Jennifer asked me point blank if I'd done what they said. She was 17 at the time, about to take her college entrance exams. She looked me in the eyes and asked, "Mom, tell me the truth. Did you steal that money?" "And what did you say?" "The truth. That I would never do such a thing, that it was all a setup, that I loved her more than life itself, and would never deliberately put her in that position." But I saw in her eyes that she didn't fully believe me. Or maybe she didn't want to, because believing would mean accepting the world was crueler and more unfair than she was ready to understand. William felt his heart tighten with every word. He knew the corporate world, how easy it was to destroy someone's reputation with the right connections. "And your daughter?" Jennifer started being ashamed of me. The school environment became unbearable for her. Classmates whispered behind her back, teachers treated her with pity, some parents even forbade their kids from associating with her. Karen used that to convince Jennifer that the only way she could have a future was to cut ties with me completely. Kate paused, watching the people passing through the square. Hurried executives, students with backpacks, street vendors. Normal life moving on while other lives fell apart. Karen told Jennifer I was toxic, that my presence in her life would only bring trouble. She painted me as the villain who'd ruined the family's future. And the worst part was, seeing Jennifer's suffering, I started to believe maybe Karen was right. How so? I watched my daughter lose opportunities because of my scandal, scholarships denied, college spots revoked, even part-time jobs she couldn't get because of my name. I began to think, maybe it really would be better for her if I just disappeared from her life. William's chest ached. He could imagine a mother's pain making that impossible choice. When I hit 2 years of living on the streets, penniless, surviving on charity, Karen made the final move. She told Jennifer she'd gotten a job transfer to Chicago and they were going to start fresh there, far from all of it. Jennifer, who was about to turn 18, agreed. They left without telling you? Karen sent me a letter, a cold, formal letter, saying she was exercising guardianship over Jennifer and thought it best if we cut contact for good, that I'd done enough damage and Jennifer deserved a chance to be happy. Tears streamed freely down Kate's face now. William instinctively moved closer, offering his presence as comfort. The letter reached me at a shelter where I was staying temporarily. I read Karen's harsh words, but what hurt most was the little note Jennifer had attached. She'd written just, "Mum, I'm sorry, but I need to try to be happy. Maybe this is for the best. I love you, but I can't anymore." It was her handwriting. I recognized it immediately. Was that when you lost all hope? Not right away. For the first few months, I tried to track them down. He spent the little money he could earn from collecting cans or doing odd jobs to call Chicago, trying to find out where they were. But Karen was smart. She changed jobs, moved neighborhoods several times, almost as if she were running from me. Did you ever find them? Once, almost. I found out Karen was working at a school in the Chicago metropolitan area. I saved money for 2 months to pay for a bus ticket. I spent 3 days in the city, sleeping at the bus station, searching for the school. When I finally found it, I learned Karen had quit the week before. A co-worker told me she'd mentioned going to Washington, D.C. William could feel the frustration and despair Grace must have felt in that moment. Was that when you gave up? No. I kept trying for another year. Washington, D.C., then a lead that they were in Atlanta, then another that they'd gone back to Illinois. It was like chasing ghosts. Every city I reached, they'd already left. I started suspecting Karen was somehow keeping tabs on me, always one step ahead. That must have been torture. It was. But the worst moment was when I finally got the phone number of a place where Jennifer had worked temporarily as a substitute teacher. I called, pretending to be an old teacher of hers, wanting to recommend her for a job. The person told me Jennifer had mentioned having no family, that she was an orphan and had been raised only by her aunt. Grace's voice completely broke at that point. My own daughter had erased me from her story. To her, I no longer existed. It was as if the first 16 years of her life had never happened, as if I had never existed. William didn't know what to say. Grace's pain was so deep, so visceral, that any words would feel inadequate. Was that when you stopped searching? Yes. I realized I was being selfish. Jennifer was trying to build a new life, free from the weight of my past. Who was I to show up and destroy the peace she'd managed to find? If she wanted to pretend I didn't exist, maybe the greatest act of motherly love I could give was to truly disappear. And how did you adjust to life on the streets? Grace gave a bitter smile. Adjustment is too generous a word. The first few years were indescribable. I'd gone from a sheltered academic life straight to the streets. I had no idea how to get food, where to sleep safely, how to avoid danger. I suffered violence, humiliation, hunger, cold. There were nights I begged God not to let me wake up the next morning. What kept you alive? Honestly, for a long time it was just inertia. Wake up, search for food, find a place to sleep, repeat. But gradually I began finding small purposes, helping other homeless people who were worse off than me, teaching some street kids to read, sharing food when I had a little extra. You kept teaching even on the streets? In a very different way, but yes. There was a group of kids who stayed near the Times Square subway station. They lived by selling candy at traffic lights, sniffing glue, completely abandoned by the system. I started telling them stories, teaching them basic literacy. I had no materials, so I used cardboard from the trash and charcoal left over from fires. William was struck by Grace's determination to keep her educator's spirit alive even in the harshest circumstances. Did they learn? Yes. And it was incredible to see their eyes light up when they recognized a word or wrote their own name for the first time. It reminded me why I'd become a teacher in the first place. Not for awards, recognition, or academic status, but for the pure joy of seeing knowledge transform lives. And what about your court case? Was the lawsuit still going on? Formally, yes, but practically I had already lost. My lawyers stopped representing me when the money ran out. The case dragged on in the courts, but without proper legal representation, I knew I didn't stand a chance. Besides, the people involved in the setup were powerful. They had connections. I was just a disgraced teacher. Tears streamed down Kate's face now. William, without thinking, offered her his handkerchief. "Thank you," she murmured. "I'm sorry for unloading all this on you. I guess it's been a long time since I've really talked to anyone." "Don't apologize. I haven't spoken about Elizabeth to anyone for months either." They sat in silence, two strangers bound by grief. The sun began to dip behind the buildings, painting the sky orange. "William, can I ask you something?" "Of course." "Why were you here today in this park?" William looked around. Washington Square Park, in the heart of New York City, had always been a bustling place. Now, in the late afternoon, a few people hurried past, returning from work. "I don't know. After Elizabeth was gone, the house felt empty. 20 rooms and none of them bring me peace. Today, I just drove aimlessly and ended up here. When I saw this bench, I remembered when we were dating. We used to meet here on weekends." Kate smiled for the first time since they'd started talking. What a lovely memory. It was. But now, even the good memories hurt. "I understand. I feel the same way about Jennifer. Every happy memory feels like a knife to the chest." They stayed there until nightfall. William offered to take Kate somewhere safe to spend the night, but she gently refused. "I have my spots. I've known this city for 5 years, but thank you for your concern. Can I come back here tomorrow to talk?" Kate looked at him in surprise. "You really want to?" "Yes, it's been a long time since I've felt less alone." "Then it's a deal. Same time." William agreed, and they said goodbye. On the way home, he caught himself thinking about that extraordinary woman. How many Kates were out there on the streets, with complex stories hidden behind the appearance of ordinary homeless people? The next morning, William woke up earlier than he had in months. For the first time since Elizabeth's passing, he had something to look forward to. At 5 in the afternoon, he was back at the park. Kate was already there, sitting on the same bench. This time, she had a book in her hands. "What are you reading?" William asked, sitting beside her. "Ernest Hemingway, The Old Man and the Sea. I found it in a trash bin near the library. The pages are a bit yellowed, but it's still readable." William glanced at the worn book. It was unbelievable how Kate kept her passion for literature alive, even in such difficult circumstances. "Do you miss teaching?" "Every day," she answered, closing the book. "It was more than a job to me. It was a calling. I loved seeing my students' eyes light up when they discovered something new in American literature. Why not try teaching again? At a private school, maybe?" Kate laughed bitterly. "William, you don't understand. When you're accused of corruption at a federal university, word spreads. My name is tarnished in every academic circle. Besides, to teach, I'd need documents, a permanent address, basic things I don't have." William grew thoughtful. He knew many influential people in education, had contacts in the judicial system, and the means to investigate any case thoroughly. But something told him Kate wouldn't easily accept any offer of help. There was pride in her, a dignity that even 5 years on the streets hadn't broken. "Kate, can I ask you a personal question? After everything I've already shared, I think we can ask each other anything. Have you ever thought about trying to find your daughter again? Now that she's an adult, maybe she could better understand what happened." Kate's face closed off immediately, as if a curtain had dropped. "William, Jennifer must be 30 by now. She's probably built a life for herself, maybe has a career, relationships. perhaps even children. To her, I'm just a bad memory from the past. Why would I show up now and ruin the peace she's found? What if she's looking for you too, after 15 years? I doubt it, William. If she wanted to find me, she could have. We live in the age of the internet, of social media. If someone wants to find a person, it's not that hard. William didn't press the matter further at that moment, but something inside him decided he would help Kate, whether she wanted it or not. There were resources, there were ways, and if there was even a chance to reunite mother and daughter, he would find it. The sun was beginning to dip behind the buildings when William checked his watch and realized they'd been talking for over 2 hours. It was the longest, most meaningful conversation he'd had since Elizabeth passed. "William, can I ask about you now?" Kate said, noticing he seemed lost in thought. "Of course. You mentioned losing your wife 3 months ago. Do you want to talk about her?" William took a deep breath. Talking about Elizabeth was still painful, but for the first time, he felt like sharing the memories. Elizabeth she was everything I never knew I needed in life. We met when I was just a young programmer full of dreams and little else. She worked as a nurse at the hospital where my father was being treated for cancer. "So you met under difficult circumstances?" "Yes. My father was in his final days, and I spent nights at the hospital trying to work on my laptop between visits. Elizabeth always stopped to talk, asked if I was eating, if I needed anything. She took care of him with a dedication that went far beyond just doing her job." Kate smiled. "She sounds like she was a special person." She was. When my father passed, I was completely lost. He was my only family, my mentor in business. Elizabeth stayed with me through the funeral, helped with the arrangements, just gave me the support I needed without me even asking. "And you started dating after that?" "Not right away. She said it wouldn't be right to comfort me romantically while I was grieving. She waited 3 months before accepting my first dinner invitation. That's how she always was. Elizabeth thought about what was right before what she wanted." William smiled at the memory. "Our first date was a disaster. I was so nervous I spilled wine on her dress. We were late to the restaurant because I got lost, and to top it off, it started raining and neither of us had an umbrella. And she still agreed to a second date. She told me later it was because of the disaster that she knew I was genuine. Elizabeth couldn't stand men who tried to be perfect. She liked human imperfection, honesty." "What was your marriage like?" William was silent for a moment, gathering his thoughts. 22 years of true partnership. I won't lie and say it was always easy. There were hard times, arguments, periods when we were so focused on work we almost drifted apart, but we always found our way back." "Did she keep working after you became wealthy?" "Elizabeth never stopped working. When my company took off and we had money, she left the hospital but started volunteering with health non-profits. She always said money shouldn't distance us from people who really needed help." Kate watched William's expression soften as he spoke about his wife. "She reminds me of someone I used to know," she said. "Who?" "Jennifer when she was little. My daughter was always like that, putting others before herself. When she attended a good private school, she'd always bring poorer kids from the neighborhood home to eat. She said she couldn't enjoy what she had, knowing other children were hungry. Jennifer must have gotten that from her mother. Maybe. Or maybe it's just the pure heart some people are born with, no matter how they're raised." They sat in silence for a few minutes, each lost in their own memories and thoughts. William reflected on how strange life was. Here he was, one of the most successful businessmen in New York City, sharing a park bench with a woman who lived on the streets, and feeling more human connection than he had in months. "William, can I ask you something, maybe a little personal?" "Go ahead. Why were you here today, in this specific park, on this specific bench?" William looked around. Washington Square Park had always been a bustling spot in the heart of New York City. Now, in the early evening, some people hurried home from work, others gathered in small groups, and street vendors sold their goods. After Elizabeth passed, our house became unbearable. 20 rooms, and not one of them brought me peace. The silence was deafening. This morning I woke up and just couldn't stay there another day. I got in the car and drove with no destination in mind. And you ended up here. When I saw this park, I remembered when Elizabeth and I were dating. We used to meet here on weekends after her hospital shifts. It was one of the few places downtown where we could just sit and talk without rushing. Kate smiled for the first time since their conversation began. What a lovely memory it was. Elizabeth loved watching people pass by, making up little stories about their lives. She had such an imagination. She'd say every person walking by was the main character in their own complex, fascinating story. She was right. Look at us, for example. Who'd imagine a businessman and a former teacher living on the streets would meet right here and share their deepest sorrows? William nodded, thinking about the irony of it. But now, even the good memories hurt. Every place we visited together, every tradition we had, it all just reminds me of what I've lost. I understand completely. I feel the same way about Jennifer. Every book I read, every song I hear, even something as simple as seeing a mother with her teenage daughter on the street, it's like a knife to the heart. How do you bear it? I mean, how do you keep living with that constant pain? Kate took a long moment before answering. The first few years, I couldn't. There were days the pain was so heavy I'd just freeze, unable to do anything but cry. But slowly I realized the pain wasn't going away just because I wanted it to, so I had to learn to live with it. And how did you do that? By finding small purposes each day, helping someone worse off than me, teaching a child to read, sharing food with someone hungrier. I found the pain eases when you focus on easing someone else's. William was struck by the simple, profound wisdom in her words. That's an interesting way to look at it. William, can I offer some unsolicited advice? Please. You said your house has 20 rooms, but none bring you peace. Maybe the problem isn't the house, it's what you're doing with it. What if you turned some of those empty rooms into something Elizabeth would have approved of? How do you mean? She worked with charities, didn't she? How about using your home and resources to continue her work, honoring her memory through actions she valued? William fell silent, considering the suggestion. It was an idea that had never crossed his mind, but it made sense. That's an interesting thought, Kate. But honestly, these past few months, I haven't been able to motivate myself for anything. I wake up, go to work on autopilot, come home and repeat. It's like I'm living in a constant fog. I understand that feeling, but maybe that's exactly why you need a bigger purpose, something to pull you out of the fog. They stayed there talking until the square lit up with evening lights. William offered to take Kate somewhere safe to spend the night, but she gently refused. Thank you for your concern, William, but I've known this city for 5 years. I know where it's safe to sleep, where to find food, how to avoid trouble. I have my routine, my places. At least let me give you some money. No, William, I don't want our friendship to start with pity or charity. You gave me something far more valuable today than money. What? You made me feel human again. It's been so long since someone talked to me as an equal, with a story, intelligence, feelings. Usually people just see me as a beggar if they see me at all. William's heart ached. Kate, you're one of the most interesting and intelligent people I've ever met. Your current situation doesn't define who you are. Thank you. And you surprised me too. I expected to meet some arrogant businessman, but instead I found a broken man trying to figure out how to keep living. We're more alike than we thought. Can I come back here tomorrow to talk again? Kate looked at him with genuine surprise. You really want that? Yes. Today was the first time in months I felt less alone. The first time I could talk about Elizabeth without feeling like I was drowning in grief. Then it's a plan. Same time tomorrow? Deal. They said goodbye with a warm handshake. William walked back to his car with a strange feeling in his chest. It wasn't exactly happiness, but it was something close to hope. For the first time since Elizabeth's passing, he had something to look forward to. A real conversation, a genuine human connection. On the drive home, he found himself thinking about that extraordinary woman. How many Kates were out there on the streets of New York City, with complex and fascinating stories hidden behind the appearance of mere homelessness? How many injustices went unnoticed every day? When he got home, William looked at the 20 empty rooms with new eyes. For the first time, instead of just seeing reminders of Elizabeth, he could imagine possibilities. Maybe Kate was right. Maybe it was time to turn that space into something that honored his wife's memory. The next morning, William woke up earlier than he had in months. It wasn't the alarm that woke him, but a good kind of restlessness and anticipation. For the first time since Elizabeth's passing, he had something concrete to look forward to during the day. At 5 in the afternoon, he'd return to the square. At work, William caught himself thinking about Kate's story. There were obvious gaps, details she hadn't shared. The setup against her seemed too elaborate to be just simple envy. There was more to that story. In the days that followed, they settled into a routine. William arrived at the square every afternoon at 5. Sometimes they shared food, other times they just talked. Kate told him more about her academic life, her childhood dreams, the struggles of raising a daughter alone. William spoke about his tech company, about how he built a business empire, but mostly about Elizabeth. She was a nurse when we met, William shared on a rainy afternoon as they took shelter under a nearby awning. She worked at the hospital where my father was admitted. I was just a young programmer trying to start my first company. Elizabeth cared for him in his final days, and when my father passed, she was the one who comforted me. She sounds like she was a special person. She was. She always worried more about others than herself. When my company grew and we became wealthy, she insisted on continuing to volunteer at public hospitals. She said money shouldn't distance us from people who truly needed help. Kate smiled. She reminds me of someone I knew. Who? Jennifer. My daughter was always like that, concerned about others. When she was little, she'd bring poorer kids from school home to eat. She said she couldn't enjoy her meal knowing her friends were hungry. She must have gotten that from her mother. Maybe. Or maybe it's just the pure heart some people are born with. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, don't forget to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It really helps us as we're starting out. Now, continuing. A week later, William arrived at the square and didn't find Kate. He waited until dark, but she never showed. The next morning, he returned early and searched the area. Finally, he found her in a nearby alley, curled up behind some cardboard boxes, shaking with fever. Kate, my God, what happened? William? She murmured, barely able to open her eyes. I'm sorry. I couldn't make it to the square yesterday. William touched her forehead. She was burning up. You need to go to the hospital right away. No, I can't afford it. I'll pay. Come on, let me help you. Kate tried to protest but was too weak. William picked her up and carried her to his car. At the hospital, he insisted on the best doctors and the best room. Kate had pneumonia and was dehydrated. She'll be fine, the doctor assured, but she needs a few days of hospitalization and plenty of rest. William stayed by the bed as Kate slept under the medication's effects. Watching her lying there in clean hospital clothes with her hair washed, he could clearly see the teacher she had once been, her refined features, her elegant posture, even in sleep. When Kate woke the next morning, William was there with a cup of coffee. You stayed here all night. I did. How are you feeling? Better, thank you. But William, you can't spend your money on me. I can't possibly. Kate, listen to me. These past few days, you've given me something I thought I'd lost forever. You've given me hope, friendship, a reason to wake up in the morning. Let me return the favor. Kate began to cry. It's been so long since anyone cared about me. I care, and I'll keep caring. Kate stayed hospitalized for 3 days. William visited every morning and evening, bringing books, good food, and most of all, companionship. They talked about everything: literature, philosophy, business, lost dreams, and renewed hopes. On the 3rd day, when William arrived to visit Kate, he found the room empty. Where's the patient from room 302? He asked the nurse. She was discharged early this morning, said she had something urgent to take care of. William left the hospital worried. Why had Kate left without saying goodbye? He spent the rest of the day searching for her around the city. Finally, as evening fell, he found her in an unfamiliar area near a public school. Kate was digging through a trash bin for cans when William approached. Kate, I was worried. Why did you leave the hospital like that? She turned around, surprised and a bit embarrassed. William, what are you doing here? looking for you. Why did you run away? Kate sighed and sat on a nearby low wall. I found out where Jennifer goes to school. William's eyes widened. How? Yesterday, one of the nurses at the hospital mentioned her daughter attended a school nearby. She described a new teacher who started this year from Illinois working as a substitute. The description, it could have been Jennifer. And you came to check? I did. And it was her, William. My daughter. After 15 years, I saw her leaving school yesterday. William sat beside her. That's wonderful. Did you talk to her? No. Kate shook her head. She was with other teachers, laughing, looking happy. And I... Look at me, William. How could I approach her like this? William glanced at Kate's worn clothes at the makeshift cart filled with cans. Is that why you're collecting recyclables? I'm trying to save up for decent clothes. I want to clean up, look presentable before talking to her. Jennifer deserves a mother who at least has some dignity in her appearance. William's heart ached. Kate was willing to humiliate herself even more just to regain some dignity in front of her daughter. Kate, this could take months. What if she moves again? Then I'll lose my chance once more, Kate replied, tears welling up again. But I can't show up in front of her like a beggar, not after everything she's already been through because of me. William studied her for a long moment. Finally, he made a decision. Come with me. Where? Home. You'll take a shower, put on decent clothes, and tomorrow we'll talk to your daughter together. William, I can't accept this. I've already cost you so much money. Kate, you saved my life. What do you mean? When you approached me in that park, I was thinking about giving up on everything. The pain of losing Elizabeth was so great I couldn't see a reason to go on. You gave me a reason to live again. Kate looked at him in surprise. William, let me repay you. Let me help you get your daughter back. After much resistance, Kate agreed. At William's house, she took her first hot shower in years. He lent her Elizabeth's clothes, which fit perfectly. When Kate came downstairs, William barely recognized her. She looked truly beautiful, with all the dignity of a university professor restored. How do I look? She asked nervously. Like the mother any daughter would be proud to have. That night, Kate slept in the guest room. For the first time in 5 years, she slept in a real bed, with clean sheets and a safe roof over her head. The next morning, they went to the school. William waited in the car while Kate approached the gate. After 15 years, mother and daughter were about to meet again. Kate waited until the bell rang and the teachers began leaving. Her heart raced when she saw Jennifer walking toward the gate. She was taller, more mature, but still had the same kind eyes and gentle smile from her teenage years. Jennifer, Kate called softly. The young woman stopped and looked toward the voice. For a moment she seemed confused. Then her eyes widened. Mom. Yes, my daughter. It's me. Jennifer stood frozen for a few seconds. Then she quickly turned and started walking the other way. Jennifer, wait! Kate shouted, running after her. No! Jennifer spun around, her eyes filled with tears and anger. You can't just show up here after all these years. My daughter, please let me explain. Explain what? How you abandoned our family? How you destroyed our lives with your crimes? I didn't commit any crimes, Jennifer. I was wronged. Of course you were. That's what all criminals say. William, who was watching from a distance, saw that the situation was getting out of control. He stepped out of the car and approached. Excuse me, he said politely. Sorry to interrupt, but I think it would be better to talk somewhere more private. Jennifer looked at William suspiciously. Who are you? A friend of your mother's, William Anderson. William Anderson, the businessman? Yes, and I can assure you your mother is one of the most honorable people I've ever known. Jennifer glanced from William to Kate, clearly confused. How do you know each other? It's a long story, Kate replied. Jennifer, please, give me a chance to explain everything. 15 years is a long time. There's so much you don't know. Jennifer hesitated. It was obvious part of her wanted to listen, but years of resentment didn't just disappear. I need to think. This is all so sudden. I understand, Kate said, trying to hide her disappointment. But could you give me your phone number so we can talk when you're ready? I don't know if... William gently intervened. Jennifer, may I suggest something? How about dinner at my place tomorrow? A neutral setting where you can talk calmly. Jennifer looked at him, still wary, but something in William's sincerity made her consider it. Why do you care about this? Because your mother has become very important to me, and because I know how much it hurts to lose someone we love. Jennifer was silent for a long moment. Finally, she agreed. All right, but just for one evening. William handed her his card with the address. She took it, looked at Kate one last time, and left without another word. Do you think she'll show up? Kate asked on the way back. I do. I saw in her eyes that she wants to believe you. She just needs to overcome the fear of being disappointed again. The next evening, William prepared a simple but elegant dinner. Kate was nervous, changing outfits several times, rehearsing what she would say. Breathe, William reassured her. Just be yourself. The truth always finds a way. At exactly 8 o'clock, the doorbell rang. Jennifer stood at the door, clearly nervous too. Good evening, she greeted William. Then she looked at Kate. Mom. Hi, sweetheart. Thank you for coming. During dinner, the conversation was tense at first. Jennifer asked direct questions about what had happened at the university. Kate answered patiently, explaining every detail of the process, the forged documents, the consequences. Why did you never try to find me afterward? Jennifer asked. I did, honey. But your Aunt Karen always moved cities whenever I found out where you were. She said you were dangerous, that you could influence me negatively. And you believed her? Jennifer lowered her eyes. I was a confused, hurt teenager. I didn't know what to believe. Kate reached out to touch Jennifer's hand. I don't blame you for that. You were just a child trying to survive an impossible situation. Jennifer began to cry. I missed you so much, Mom, but at the same time I was so angry. I understand, sweetheart. I was angry too, at myself, at the people who hurt me, at the whole world. How did you manage living on the streets? Kate glanced at William before answering. There were days I didn't think I could, but whenever I thought of giving up, I remembered you, the possibility that one day we might see each other again. Jennifer stood up and hugged her mother for the first time in 15 years. Both cried for a long time, releasing years of pain and longing. William discreetly left the room to give them privacy. When he returned an hour later, he found mother and daughter sitting side by side on the couch, talking softly. How are things? He asked. Better, Jennifer replied. We still have a lot to talk about, many wounds to heal, but it's a start. Jennifer told me she's a teacher, Kate said, pride evident in her voice. Yes, I teach high school English. I always wanted to follow in your footsteps in education. Even after everything that happened. Maybe because of everything that happened. I wanted to prove our family wasn't dishonest, that we could contribute positively to society. Kate smiled with tears in her eyes. You did it, my dear. And without needing my help. They talked late into the night. Jennifer shared about her studies, her work, her life in Illinois with Karen. Kate listened intently, trying to recover 15 lost years in a single evening. When Jennifer left, she hugged Kate once more. Can I see you again tomorrow? Of course, my dear. And William, thank you for everything. After Jennifer left, Kate collapsed onto the couch, emotionally drained. How do you feel? William asked. Like I've run a marathon, but it's a good exhaustion. For the first time in 15 years, I have real hope. She seems like a wonderful young woman. She is. Despite everything she went through, she grew up strong and determined. It makes me proud and sad at the same time. Why sad? Because I missed the most important years of her life. I wasn't there when she needed me. William sat beside her. Kate, you may not have been physically present, but your love was always with her. That's what made her the person she is today. In the following days, Kate and Jennifer met daily, sometimes at William's house, other times at neutral spots around New York City. Gradually, their relationship rebuilt itself. Jennifer confessed she'd always doubted Karen's version of events, Something in her heart told her that her mother wasn't a criminal, but as a teenager, she had nowhere else to go but her aunt's house. Karen told me you'd chosen a life of crime, that you didn't care about me anymore, Jennifer revealed one afternoon. Never, my dear, you two were all I had in the world. I know that now, but back then, I was young and impressionable. Kate learned Jennifer had graduated in American literature from the University of Chicago, always thinking of her teacher mother. Even through anger, she could never fully abandon the love for literature that Kate had planted in her. Do you remember those nights when I was little and you read Mark Twain to me? Jennifer asked. Of course I remember. You always begged for one more chapter. I still do that with my students. I read to them, try to make them fall in love with American literature like I did. Kate smiled, moved. You became the teacher I always dreamed of being. A week after their reunion, William found Kate in his kitchen making breakfast. She was humming softly, something he'd never seen before. Good morning. How did you sleep? Better than I have in years, she replied. William, I need to talk to you about something important. What is it? Jennifer offered me a place to stay. She rented a small house here in New York so she wouldn't have to go back to Illinois every day. She wants me to live with her. William felt a pang of sadness but tried to hide it. That's wonderful, Kate. It's what you've always wanted. It is, but I'm also worried. About what? About you. These past weeks we've become family. I don't want you to be alone again. William was touched by her concern. Kate, you gave me back my will to live. Now it's your turn to be happy. I'll be fine. Are you sure? I am. Besides, I'm not losing you. I expect we'll keep seeing each other regularly. Kate hugged him. You'll always be my family, William. You and Jennifer are all I have in the world now. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, please take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It really helps us who are just starting out. Now, continuing. 2 weeks later, Kate moved into the apartment Jennifer had rented. It was simple but cozy. For the first time in 5 years, Kate had a real home. William helped them move and then left, letting mother and daughter be alone to rebuild their lives together. But 3 days later, Jennifer showed up at his place unannounced, visibly upset. William, I need your help. What happened? It's about my mum. She's getting sick again, but this time it's not physical, it's emotional. William invited her inside. Explain it to me. She's afraid, William. Afraid I'll abandon her again, afraid this is all temporary. She can't sleep, barely eats. Keeps asking me if I'm sure I've forgiven her. And have you? Completely. But she can't believe it. 15 years of rejection don't heal in a few weeks. William understood the problem. Kate was so traumatized by loss that she was afraid to trust again. What do you think I can do to help? I don't know. You know my mom in a way I don't. Maybe she'll listen to you. William agreed to try. The next morning he went to visit Kate. He found her sitting in the small living room staring out the window with a melancholy expression. Hi, Kate. How are you? William. She stood, trying to sound cheerful. So good to see you. How did you know where we live? Jennifer came to see me. She's worried about you. Kate's face closed off immediately. Did she say something? Any complaints? Kate, sit here with me, William said gently. Jennifer has no complaints. She's worried because she loves you and sees you're hurting. I'm not hurting, I'm fine. I finally have my daughter back. But you're afraid of losing her again. Kate began to cry. William, what if she gets tired of me? What if she realizes it's easier to live without my problems? I couldn't bear losing Jennifer a second time. Kate, look at me. William took her hands. Jennifer isn't a confused teenager anymore. She's a grown woman who made a conscious choice to forgive you and rebuild her life with you. Trust her. But what if? There are no guarantees in life, Kate. I could have lost Elizabeth in an accident at 20, or she could have lived to 100. What matters is the time we have. Cherish every moment with Jennifer instead of wasting them on fear. Kate was silent for a long moment. How are you so wise? I'm not wise. I've just learned that pain is part of life. but it can't control our lives. That afternoon, mother and daughter had an honest talk. Jennifer reassured Kate of her love and commitment, and Kate promised to try to overcome her fears. Things improved considerably after that. Kate started smiling again, taking interest in books, helping Jennifer with lesson plans. William visited them regularly, gradually becoming part of the family they were rebuilding, the honorary uncle neither had ever had. A month later, during a Sunday lunch at their place, Jennifer made an announcement that surprised everyone. "Mom, William, I have some news." "Good or bad?" Kate asked nervously. "Good, I hope. I got a permanent job at a private school here in New York City. No more traveling between cities." Kate beamed. "That's wonderful, sweetheart." "And there's more," Jennifer continued. "The school is looking for someone to tutor students struggling with literature. I thought maybe you'd like to try." Kate's eyes widened. "Jennifer, you know I can't." "My reputation." "Mom, the school principal is a friend of mine from college. I told him your story. He said what matters is your competence, not rumors from the past. But I don't have my documents anymore, or references." William leaned forward. "Kate, I can help with that. I have contacts who can verify your education and experience. We can rebuild your professional records." Kate looked from one to the other, hardly able to believe it. "Are you saying I could go back to teaching?" "We're saying you never stopped being a teacher," Jennifer replied. "You just had to pause for a while." 2 weeks later, Kate stood in front of a class of 15 high school students, teaching American literature again. Her eyes sparkled in a way William hadn't seen since they first met. After the first lesson, she called him elated. "William, it was perfect. The students were engaged, asked questions, participated in the discussion." "I'm happy for you, Kate. I knew it would work out. I'll never be able to thank you enough for everything you've done for me. You already have. You gave me a family when I thought I'd never have one again." Over the months, the lives of the three settled into a pleasant routine. Kate excelled at the school and was soon promoted to teach full-time classes. Jennifer found satisfaction working at the same institution as her mother. William discovered that having 2 women to care for gave new purpose to his life. They gathered every Sunday for lunch together, alternating between Kate and Jennifer's home and William's mansion. Gradually, their conversations shifted from the past to the future. It was during one of these Sunday lunches that William received a call that would change everything again. "William Anderson?" said the woman's voice on the other end. "Yes, who's speaking?" "My name is Dr. Rachel Wilson. I'm an attorney representing the family of a former employee at New York University. I'd like to schedule a meeting with you regarding the case of Grace Anderson." William nearly dropped the phone. "Grace Anderson? How do you—" "Mr. Anderson, I know you've taken an interest in the professor's case. I have information that may concern you." William glanced at Kate, who was chatting animatedly with Jennifer about a school project. He decided not to mention anything until he knew more. "Where can we meet?" 2 days later, William sat in Dr. Rachel's office, a woman in her 50s, with a serious yet kind demeanor. "Thank you for coming, Mr. Anderson. I'll be direct. I represent the family of Richard Cooper, who worked in financial administration at Columbia University when Professor Grace was accused." "Go on." "Richard spent the last years of his life tormented by guilt. Before passing away last month, he confessed to his family that he took part in a scheme to frame Professor Grace." William leaned forward. "Explain." "According to Richard's testimony, a group of administrators was embezzling university funds. When they discovered Professor Grace was investigating irregularities, they decided to pin it on her first." "They fabricated the evidence?" "Exactly. Richard had access to the financial systems and planted fake transfers in the professor's account. He kept copies of all the original documents as insurance." William's heart raced. "Do you have that evidence?" "I have everything. Documents, records, even secretly recorded conversations Richard made for his own protection." "Why didn't he come forward sooner?" "Fear. The others involved had powerful connections. Richard feared for his safety and his family's. Only on his deathbed did he find the courage to confess." William fell silent, processing the information. "What does his family want?" justice. Richard specifically asked that we seek out Professor Anderson and try to undo what was done to her. Why come to me? Because we know you've grown close to the professor, and because, frankly, she'll need someone with resources and influence to fight against the people who wronged her. William didn't hesitate. What do I need to do? That night, William returned home with a heavy heart. He held proof of Kate's innocence in his hands, but he also knew the process of clearing her name would be long and painful. He decided to talk to Jennifer first to figure out how to approach the subject with Kate. "Jennifer, I need to talk to you about something important." "Of course, William, what is it?" William told her everything: the meeting with the lawyer, the evidence, the possibility of clearing Kate's name. Jennifer stayed silent for a long moment. "My mother always said she was innocent. Deep down, I always believed her, but now we have proof. How do you think she'll react?" "I don't know. On one hand, she might feel relieved to finally prove her innocence. On the other, she might be devastated to learn she lost 15 years of her life to a lie. William, do you think we should tell her?" "I think she has the right to know, and to decide if she wants to fight to clear her name." The following Sunday, during lunch, William and Jennifer told Kate everything. She listened in silence, showing no emotion. When they finished, she stared blankly for several minutes. "Mom," Jennifer called, worried. "How do you feel?" "I don't know," Kate answered honestly. "It's strange. For years I dreamed of this moment. When it happened, I imagined I'd be overjoyed, that I'd shout with happiness." "And you don't feel that way?" "No, I feel empty. Like 15 years of my life were erased for nothing." William took her hand. "Kate, those 15 years weren't for nothing. They brought you to me, brought you and Jennifer back together. If you hadn't gone through all this, our friendship would never have begun." "That's one way to look at it," she murmured. "Mom, what do you want to do?" Jennifer asked. Kate was thoughtful. "I want to fight, not for me, but for all the others who might be wronged the same way. And I want my students to know their teacher is honest." The next few months were intense. William hired the best lawyers to represent Kate. The case gained media attention, especially after other former university employees came forward with similar accusations. The process was emotionally draining for Kate. She had to relive every detail of that time, face public humiliation again, and answer questions about her competence and character. But this time she wasn't alone. William and Jennifer stood by her at every hearing, every testimony, every difficult moment. "Sometimes I wonder if it's worth it," Kate confided in William one night after a particularly hard day in court. "Why?" "Because I've already rebuilt my life. I have my daughter back, a job I love, you as family. Why dig up the past?" "Because the truth matters, Kate, and because you have the chance to spare others from what you went through." 6 months after the case began, the court finally issued its decision. Kate was fully exonerated of all charges. More than that, the university was ordered to pay substantial compensation for moral and material damages. William and Jennifer were in the courtroom when the judge read the verdict. Kate cried, but they were tears of relief and justice, not sorrow. "How do you feel now?" William asked afterward. "Whole," she answered. "For the first time in 15 years, I feel whole." The university's compensation was enough to ensure financial security for Kate for the rest of her life. But instead of retiring, she decided to use part of the money to create something special. "William, Jennifer, I have a proposal for you," she said one evening. "What is it?" "I want to open a school, a free school for adults who never had the chance to complete their education. I want to give others the opportunity I didn't have all these years." William smiled. "That's a wonderful idea, Kate. You can count on me for anything you need." "And me too," Jennifer added. "We can work together, mother and daughter, teaching side by side." 2 years later, the Grace Anderson Second Chance School was up and running in full swing in a renovated building in downtown New York City. Kate was the principal, Jennifer the academic coordinator, and William the volunteer administrator. The school served people of all ages who had dropped out of school for various reasons. Many were adults who had to work from a young age, others were women who had prioritized family, and some were recovering former addicts. They all had one thing in common: the determination to start over. Professor Kate, said a 60-year-old student one afternoon. "You saved my life." "How so, Mrs. Margaret?" "I thought it was too late for me, that at 60 studying wouldn't make a difference anymore. But you showed me it's never too late to start again." Kate smiled, remembering how she herself had started over at 55. "Mrs. Margaret, life gives us many chances to begin again. The important thing is recognizing them when they come." At the end of each day, the three would gather in the school office to plan the next day's activities. It was in these moments that William felt most fulfilled in his life. "William," Kate said one evening, "can I ask you something?" "Of course." "Do you have any regrets about getting involved in my life, changing your routine, investing so much time and energy in my problems?" William thought for a moment. "You know what my only regret is." "What?" "Not having met you two sooner. I think about all the time we lost together." Jennifer laughed. "William, maybe it wasn't the right time before. Maybe we all needed to go through everything we did to be ready for this family we've built." "Jennifer's right," Kate agreed. "If we had met 20 years ago, we'd be different people. I'd still be too proud to accept help. You'd still be focused only on business. Jennifer would still be a child. Now we're who we need to be." William nodded, recognizing the wisdom in those words. 5 years had passed since their first meeting in the park. The school had grown and now served over 300 students a year. Kate became a respected figure in adult education, giving lectures and workshops across the country. William sold part of his businesses and devoted more time to social work. He discovered his business experience was valuable in helping former students start small businesses. Jennifer married a fellow teacher and gave Kate the greatest gift she could, a grandchild. William became the most doting honorary grandfather New York City had ever seen. "Grandpa William, tell the story of how you met Grandma Kate," 5-year-old Ethan would ask. "Again," William teased, "but you already know it by heart." "But I love hearing it. It's the best story in the world." And William would tell the story once more, how two strangers met on a park bench, brought together by loneliness and pain, and built a family based on love, forgiveness, and second chances. The school continued to grow. Kate received numerous awards for her work in education. William was recognized for his social contributions. Jennifer became a renowned educator, but for them, the greatest reward was the family they had built and the lives they transformed every day. "You know what I've learned all these years?" Kate said one afternoon as they watched the students leaving the school. "What?" "That sometimes the greatest tragedy in our lives is actually the beginning of our greatest blessing. If I hadn't lost everything, I'd never have gained all I have today." William looked at her, then at Jennifer playing with Ethan in the schoolyard. "Grace Anderson, you're the wisest person I know." "No, William. I'm just someone who learned to turn pain into purpose." And there, in the place where dreams were reborn every day, where people discovered it's never too late to start over, William realized he had found not just a friend, but the true meaning of life. On the bench in the park where it all began, there was now a small plaque that read, "Hope Bench, where strangers become family." It was a tribute from the city to William and Kate's story, which had inspired other social projects across town. Every month they returned to that bench to talk and remember. They were no longer the lonely businessman and the desperate beggar. They were two people who had discovered that true wealth isn't in what we have, but in what we share. And when young couples walked by arguing over small problems, sometimes Kate would approach and ask, "Do you feel alone too?" Because she had learned that sometimes a simple question, asked at the right moment, can change an entire life. End of story. Now tell me, what did you think of this story of overcoming and starting over? Do you believe Kate made the right decision by opening the school instead of simply enjoying retirement? Share your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss other heartwarming stories like this one.